I placed a voice recorder in my wife's car and uncovered her infidelity. Then her mother dropped a bombshell. I'm not someone who enjoys watching my world fall apart, so when I noticed my wife acting distant, I confronted her immediately. I asked why she had stopped talking to me, hugging me, and being close. I even asked why she seemed uncomfortable with my touch. At first, she was reluctant to open up, but eventually she did, and what she said shattered me. She told me she didn't feel I was enough for her, that she had to handle everything herself and couldn't rely on me. She said she felt like she was the one making all the decisions, managing everything, including the kids. Then she added, perhaps she would be better off alone. Her words were a devastating blow, but I didn't want to argue. I love her more than anything. So I listened, told her I understood her pain, and promised to work on my behavior to ease her stress. All I want is to make things right, because she's everything to me. Still, it's difficult. Even with all I do, thoughts about her accusations keep me awake at night. That's why I turn to this group for support, because from my perspective, her criticisms aren't true. I genuinely believe I'm a good husband who does what's expected. I work from home for about 8 hours a day, and once I'm done, I focus entirely on our boys. I play with them, feed them, take the older one to swim lessons, and tuck them into bed. I even wake up at night if they need something. And it's not just about the kids. I also help around the house. I handle the dishes, do the grocery shopping, and clean, though my wife often thinks I'm not efficient enough and takes over. I take care of the car and manage the responsibilities tied to our new house. I do all of this to lighten her load because I know raising 2 little boys isn't easy. The thing is, I'm not the type of person who's constantly on the move, unable to sit still. There are people like that, always thinking about the next thing to fix, the next task to complete, or the next venture to start. My father-in-law is one of them, but I'm not. I approach things differently, and I think that's okay. After a long day of work, with the kids asleep and the house in order, I like to relax with a movie or a video game. I'm not someone who dreams of starting a business or chasing endless wealth. I excel when given tasks within my field, and I'm content with a simple, happy family life. I know I'm an ordinary guy, not chasing grand ambitions, and some people even say I'm good-looking. All I want is a loving family and a stable life. But lately my wife seems to have an issue with my approach. Although we've had a wonderful marriage for years, things began to unravel last December. Since then, I've been pushing myself to change, to go against my natural instincts. I've been running extra errands, fixing things around the house, and barely resting in the evenings. I thought she would appreciate the effort, but her attitude hasn't changed. Eventually, I worked up the courage to confront her again. With emotions running high, I asked her directly if she wanted to save our marriage. Her hesitant response, "I don't know," hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe it. Did she genuinely not know, or was she just indifferent? Despite my frustration, I pushed forward and asked if she was willing to try marriage counseling. "I don't know." I lost my composure. I told her that indecision wasn't acceptable at such a critical point, especially with our children's future at stake. I reminded her of the consequences, our kids growing up with divorced parents, and emphasized that she needed to make a commitment. Finally, after much convincing, she agreed to go to therapy. True to form, she showed no initiative, leaving it entirely to me to find a therapist. During one of our sessions, she admitted some truths that were incredibly painful to hear. She confessed that she had only married me to impress her family and fit their image of a perfect, happy family with beautiful children. She admitted she had never been truly in love with me and was more captivated by the idea of marriage itself. To make matters worse, I later found out she had secretly met with a priest to discuss our marriage behind my back. I felt betrayed and hurt. Still, I persevered and found us a good therapist. We're now heading into our 3rd session, but it's been a rough road. We've discovered that we express love differently. I need physical affection, while she values acts of service. This has been an ongoing struggle. Adding to my frustration, she hasn't shown me any physical affection since therapy began. No hugs, no touches, nothing. The therapist was shocked to learn that we haven't shared a bed in 6 months. My wife explained that she sleeps with the kids, claiming there isn't enough room for me. The therapist didn't mince words when addressing my wife. She told her it was a terrible example for the kids to deny their father access to the bedroom. She even suggested we buy a single bed from IKEA to place next to the larger one. So I did just that. I bought the bed, set it up, and now sleep there. But despite this arrangement, I still feel isolated. My wife sleeps on the far left, the boys are in the middle, and I'm stuck on the far right, feeling like an outsider in my own marriage. Since this all began, my wife has continuously shifted her narrative. Now, she claims she's depressed from being stuck at home with the kids all the time and says the hurtful things she told me were said in a moment of emotional turmoil. But no matter how upset I might feel, I would never say anything that cruel to her. To help with her stress, we decided she would go back to work and hired a nanny to look after the kids. The only noticeable change is that we've started talking more, but I'm not just her friend, I'm her husband, and there's still no intimacy between us. It doesn't seem like things will improve anytime soon. She shows no interest in our marriage counseling sessions, leaving me to handle all the arrangements. Update, my friends started suggesting that my wife might be cheating. Initially, I dismissed the idea as absurd, like a plot from a movie. It seemed impossible that she would betray me like that. But today, everything changed, and I can't deny the truth anymore. You won't believe how simple it was to catch her in the act. I placed a voice-activated recorder in her car, no GPS, nothing fancy, and within just 3 days, I had all the evidence I needed. She used the car to drive to work in the gym, and during that time, she either called him or he called her twice. I don't know who initiated the calls, but I listened to every word of their conversation. They talked about deeply personal topics, the kind of things my wife and I used to talk about when we first met 9 years ago. Inside jokes, flirtation, and that spark of attraction I haven't felt with her in years. It was all there. They even discussed plans for a vacation together. She told him she wanted to visit in July and gave him a 2-year timeline to move back to our country. If that wasn't enough, she openly talked about how she was going to leave me and become his wife. And they even shared intimate details, including their favorite positions. It was all on that 1-hour recording. I can't stop thinking about it. Next week, I'm meeting with a lawyer to figure out my next steps. Honestly, I wouldn't have even thought to buy the recorder if it weren't for a friend's suggestion. Some might say it was wrong of me to invade her privacy, but I have no regrets. I did what I had to do. My kids and their well-being are all I can think about. Knowing this has been going on since last September, and it took me 2 months to even notice her behavior changing, makes it even harder to process. Next week, I'll be in another city taking care of my father. That means she won't be going to work and will likely use my home office. I'm considering putting the recorder in there to capture whatever conversations she might have with him. Do you think I already have enough evidence, or should I take this extra step? To make matters worse, I recently discovered she tried to call her ex-boyfriend late at night. Not once, but 4 times in a row at 10 p.m. I found out because we used to have an app that saved both our call logs. Why would she suddenly reach out to someone she's never mentioned before, and so persistently? It drove me insane. I checked her iMessages on her laptop and found she even sent him a message after the calls. I'm not giving up until you actually answer and communicate with me in a respectful and civilized manner. When I confronted her about it, she denied everything, but I showed her the app and the outgoing calls right there. She had no choice but to admit she had tried to contact him. When I asked why, she claimed she was just returning his call. But when I pressed further and showed her the message, she came up with another excuse. She said he had called her while drunk, spouting nonsense, and she hung up on him. Then, feeling guilty, she tried calling him back. When he didn't answer, she sent the message. She insisted he never replied. But the whole story felt off to me. This all happened when she started pulling away from me emotionally. She doesn't see her actions as unusual or significant, but any contact with an ex is a red flag for me. It's unacceptable. Our relationship has lacked intimacy for the past 6 months, the same time frame when those calls occurred. Update: I now have undeniable proof that the real issues in our marriage are not what she's been telling everyone. The twist? She has no idea I know. Her family and friends think we're just going through a rough patch. Coming from a devout Catholic family, she has 3 sisters and attends church every Sunday. We live in a small town of about 1,700 people and recently started building a house that's still unfinished. Now I've discovered she's planning to ask me to move out soon. She planned to have some time alone with our 2 young boys in the house we built, waiting for her former boyfriend to relocate to our small town within 2 years. Her expectation was that people would understand and not judge her for needing a father figure for the kids. Interestingly, this ex-boyfriend was her first love, a relationship that lasted 5 years before she married me. We've been together for 9 years, but he frequently visits our country despite living abroad. I refuse to let myself be manipulated this way. I've already hired a lawyer and scheduled a meeting to discuss my next steps. I have recordings that could severely damage her reputation. Update: I spoke with my lawyer, who provided some crucial advice. He explained that going all out to create trouble for her during the divorce wouldn't be wise, given that we have children and will need to co-parent for the next 15 to 16 years. I also respect her family and don't want them dragged into court as witnesses. Winning custody isn't an option, as the kids are young and need to stay with their mother in the small town, about an hour away from me in the capital. Moreover, selling the house is not allowed since the kids need a stable home and their current residence, owned by her father, is only a temporary solution. This is the unfortunate reality of living in the Czech Republic. Following our discussion, the lawyer sent her the divorce papers, which were scheduled to be delivered after Easter. Yesterday, while I had the day off work, I was taking care of our 1-year-old while she went to her job in the capital. My brother came over to help me pack all my belongings from the apartment and load them into his car. During this chaotic day, the postman delivered the divorce papers, an invitation to mediation for dividing assets and finalizing the divorce amicably. The papers explicitly stated that her affair with a specific man, named in full, was the cause of the divorce. At least the evidence I have will be useful when determining child support and similar matters, giving me leverage. As soon as she returned home, I confronted her directly. I told her I knew everything, had undeniable proof, and was deeply hurt. I insisted she contact my lawyer immediately, handed her the divorce papers, and then left to visit her parents. Of course, she immediately began interrogating me, asking how I knew and what I had uncovered. She denied everything, but I recorded the entire confrontation, as my lawyer had advised. When I met with her parents, I started by asking if they thought I was a good husband and father. They affirmed that they did, which will prevent her from using them as witnesses against me in court. They were shocked, but believed me when I explained what she had done and how it had shattered our lives. I thanked them for their understanding and headed back to the capital. Meanwhile, I contacted a friend who helped spread the news among her social circle. Not long after, her brother-in-law called me, saying she had admitted to the affair, but conveniently left out key details about her closeness with the man. He assured me that everyone was on my side, emphasizing how she had destroyed what was once a happy family. Then he shared his own unsolicited story about cheating on his wife, claiming they patched things up and now lived happily together. As if that would make me feel better. Her father called me soon after. He was furious, blaming her entirely and calling her clueless about the consequences of her actions. He declared that the affair partner would never set foot in his house again and that he was cutting off financial support for her. He even tried to contact the affair partner, but the man ignored his calls. Despite this, her father suggested the marriage might still be salvageable. Her sister also messaged me, fully siding with me but echoing the sentiment that the relationship could somehow be saved. While I appreciated their support, I couldn't believe their delusion in thinking this mess could be repaired. It's absurd. I've made my decision. I'm certain there's no going back. I worry that people might assume I lack concrete evidence or that my reasons for leaving aren't strong enough. They're unaware of the explicit nature of the evidence I've collected. For instance, I have recordings where she says things like, "Make sure you can last longer than 3 seconds when I visit you in Brussels," and "I'm curious if your dad's size is as impressive as yours." She even mentioned asking another woman about her lovers. In one recording, she confessed, "I love you so much. I'm finally leaving my husband. It's about time. Record yourself and send me a video. I want to see what I've been missing. I'm giving you 2 years to figure out how to move back here." Update: just as my friends predicted, my wife is now trying to win me back. After getting an earful from her family, she's been bombarding me with apologetic texts. She claims she didn't realize what she was doing, says life without me is unbearable, and repeatedly apologizes for everything. She's even talking about looking forward to rebuilding our family life with the kids. To me, it's all empty words, just meaningless chatter that changes nothing. My lawyer finally finalized the divorce terms I requested, and now we're just waiting for her lawyer's response. In the meantime, my mother-in-law has been flooding my phone with messages, sending Christian links about forgiveness and claiming my wife is under the influence of an evil spirit. Adding to the chaos, her sister has turned the tables, blaming me for being selfish and accusing me of ruining the marriage. Now my wife is suddenly tearful and apologetic, wishing she could go back in time to undo everything. Somehow, I've become the villain in their narrative, the selfish one breaking up the marriage by filing for divorce. I expected her family might eventually turn against me, but the shift still feels like a punch to the gut. For a brief moment today, I even felt guilty, as though all of this were somehow my fault. They know exactly how to manipulate my emotions. But here's the thing. I'm standing firm. The divorce is going through, no matter what. In the Czech Republic, young children like ours typically stay with their mother after a divorce, which means I won't have them with me full time. They'll live an hour away in a small town, attending kindergarten and nursery school. A 50/50 custody arrangement isn't practical, so I'll be an every other weekend dad, with some additional visitation whenever I can manage. It's heartbreaking, but it's the reality I have to face. I've been toying with a wild idea. Proposing conditions for getting back together, not because I love her anymore, but for the sake of the kids. It wouldn't be a real marriage, just a functional partnership, separate finances, with her moving to the capital city, and I'd insist on GPS in her car and daily checks of her phone. In return, I'd allow myself to go on dates with other women for 7 months, maybe even cheat, without telling her. No commitments, no strings attached. It's a crazy thought, and I doubt I'll actually go through with it. But the pressure from her family accusing me of abandoning my children has left me grasping at straws. I'm currently staying with my parents, sleeping on their living room couch. Their dining table has become my makeshift office and entertainment center, with my clothes scattered around. I work from home for about 8 hours daily and then help my elderly parents, age 90 and 82, with chores, groceries, and doctor visits. To keep my mind off everything, I hit the gym or go to the movies. I get to see my kids every weekend. My ex drops them off and I drive them back. Just to clarify, I did a paternity test to confirm the boys are mine. No doubts there, at least. The divorce terms are still a mess, and it's impossible to predict how things will shake out. Living with my parents isn't ideal, but for now, I have no other options. As a father of 2 and an adult trying to move forward, I've asked for a fair financial settlement. My wife has agreed to take over the mortgage on the house, but she's only offering 1/3 of the amount I requested, claiming it's based on how much I contributed to the house's construction. It's frustrating because I didn't cause this situation, yet I'm left scrambling for a place to live. 1/3 of the amount won't be enough to buy even a modest flat. The back and forth between our lawyers continues. She's offering minimal support because she wants to keep the house, but I've learned she might be forced to sell it. Honestly, that's what she should have done from the start. Managing the mortgage and paying me simultaneously will be nearly impossible for her. We'll see how it all plays out. Child support is another contentious issue. She's asking for an amount that's far beyond reasonable, and we still need to come to an agreement. On top of that, she insists I should be the one to pick up the kids from the small town and drive them back at the end of the weekend. I believe it should be the opposite. She should drop them off, and I'll bring them back. After all, she's the one who caused this mess. Yet she's ready to argue about every divorce term. She's also trying to convince me she's remorseful. She says she's ended the affair, sought an exorcist, confessed everything, and left it all in God's hands. I couldn't help but laugh and told her I don't care about her priest. She should be confessing to me. I asked her to come clean about how many times she'd been intimate with her affair partner. She denied it. Then I brought up the party she attended with her work friends last November. I questioned why she rented an Airbnb instead of staying with a friend. She froze and went silent before asking, "Why do you keep torturing yourself?" I explained to her that if she truly felt sorry, she wouldn't continue to lie. Even 2 months after I moved out, it was obvious she wasn't being honest. I told her that for me, emotional closeness during video chats is just as meaningful, and I knew she had shared that intimacy with him. She couldn't even keep track of how many times she had been involved with her affair partner. I then challenged her on how she imagined reconciliation would work. I pointed out how she would start a conversation with me only to lie moments later. I asked if she realized that if we got back together, I'd be checking her phone every day and what her thoughts on that were. She snapped, saying, "That's not trust. That's treating me like garbage." At that moment, our son interrupted and the conversation wound down. Before it ended, I reminded her, "It's not just me you cheated on, but our 2 boys too." This hit her hard, and she began shouting that I should never say something like that in front of the kids again. The irony is laughable. Her sister revealed that my wife acts devastated and cries daily to gain sympathy, yet she continues lying to my face. She even had the audacity to say she could still be with the affair partner if she wanted, and that her family wouldn't stop her. It's as if I should feel grateful she chose to end things with him and act as if she's the one in control now. Update: after extensive negotiations between our lawyers, we've reached a settlement, and the divorce will soon be finalized. She's taking full ownership of the unfinished house, along with the responsibility for the mortgage. I want to make it clear that the house is for our kids. I don't want anyone accusing me of using the sale of the property as revenge for her infidelity. Besides, I have no interest in living in her small hometown, which is an hour away from the capital where I now reside. I'm getting back the money I invested in the house, and thankfully it's a decent amount. We also agreed on a reasonable amount for child support. She will bring the kids to my place in the capital every other weekend, and I'll drive them back afterward. Still, seeing my boys only on weekends isn't enough for me. It's incredibly painful, and there are moments I feel like I can't cope. The thought of my 1- and 3-year-old sons growing up without their father because of their mother's actions breaks my heart. I'm considering finding a way to visit them midweek or exploring other options to make this work. I have to find a way to survive this for their sake. As for her, she keeps reaching out, saying she still loves me and wishes she could undo the past. She claims she's suffering daily over what she's done. She's softened to the point of saying she wouldn't mind if I checked her phone anymore. It wouldn't bother her now. She even apologized to my parents and appeared genuinely remorseful, saying she's willing to do whatever it takes to fix things. You won't believe what I discovered about her affair partner. According to mutual friends, he actually dumped her. Turns out, the guy has a family and a child in Brussels and didn't want to risk getting entangled in the mess she created. It seems the whole thing was a game to him, and he used my wife like a pawn. I'm choosing to move forward with my life. I won't let her toxic behavior pull me back. The divorce is happening, and there's no chance of reconciliation. I'm done with her lies and manipulation. Good riddance to the cheater. Now, I'm focusing on a better future. Life goes on, and I'm not wasting another moment dwelling on the disaster she caused. It's time for a fresh start, and I'm ready to embrace it wholeheartedly.